Happy Monday afternoon. Dr. Alan Christensen here with you. So welcome to Office Hours Live. Okay, so this is a big moment. This will be our last Office Hours Live at this time slot. And I'll talk to you about what's next here in a moment. But yeah, real happy about that. So I'm with you guys on a couple of platforms. We are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, and we're on Instagram. And the idea is to talk through big concerns, top questions, make sense out of issues related to hormones. So yeah, hormones, body weight, thyroid, concerns along those lines, that's what we're here for. So change in format. I did a big survey a couple of weeks ago and got tons of feedback from many of you. If you don't know, the main way that I connect with people is through an email list. And we have one through drchristensen.com. And that's where we send out all the updates and talk about what's new and give like the first access to blogs and articles and whatnot. But in that, I did the survey and my readers gave me feedback about what they're hoping to do for the year, what they wanted to learn, how they wanted to connect. And one thing I heard a lot was that many wanted a different time slot and a different format for office hours. A lot of people don't use social media regularly, but they do use email. And many wanted to have a more private forum. And many wanted different times of day. So I heard all of that. And, this is for you all. So I figured, why not do it in a way that helps you all more effectively? So yeah, the next one will be on the 25th of January. And don't stress, I'll get all this information out. Wherever you're seeing me now, you'll find this information there as well. It'll be on the 25th, which is going to be a Thursday. We're going to do it more in the evening. So those who have to miss these due to work will be able to attend more readily. And they're going to be done in a new format. So you can watch passively on social media, like it's happening right now, or you can be in the live studio audience. And that's what I mean by the Zoom group. So yeah, you'll all have the access to register and attend in the live audience. And in the Zoom group, it's a better way of communicating. We can see each other in real time. You can easily put chat information up, and then I can click on you and you can go live with me. And we can speak video, audio, we can talk about things in great detail. So that's what's going to be new. And again, I'll still broadcast on social media, but the studio audience will be available for people to join on Zoom. So that'll be a little over 2 weeks from today. We're going to get some things ready in the meantime, but I'm excited about the new format. And I'll do those roughly every 2 weeks. I'm intentionally going to vary the schedule a little bit just to help people get to it more easily, because many talk about how some times are better for them than others. And there really was no one time slot that was perfect for everyone. So Joanne, looking forward to the new Zoom format. Thank you for that, Joanne. Yeah, I've heard many say that that'll work better for them. So a lot of you all coming on already. Rainy Southern Nevada. Lexi, Southern Nevada. So I don't know much about the state besides like the obvious stuff that everyone knows about. And rainy down there. I'm guessing that's not very usual. You can see the weather forecast for northern Minnesota. It's pretty simple. We got a frozen lake and we got lots of snow, but it's been warmer. It's been pretty close to freezing. So that's been great. And it's been beautiful. It was snowing, big, light, fluffy snow this morning. And I went for a long mountain bike ride out in that and just had a blast. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm seeing a lot of you here already. And yeah, thank you for being here live. The next one will be a different time slot, different format. This is kind of our last one here. This has been a regular time slot for some time. So I'm a little emotional about changing it, but it's for the best. It's what everyone wants. So we'll do it even better. And I'm going to get a couple questions today. There were some that were sent in advance, and I'm going to give those first priority. We're in the middle of a metabolism reset right now, and many are doing that in real time. And several who are doing the reset sent in some questions. And so I'm going to start with those and give the most depth to those particular ones. But if some other ones come in that I can grab as well, I'll certainly do my best with that. So yeah, welcome. And I'm seeing a lot of folks' comments. And again, I'm with you guys, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. So wherever you are, it's great. 9 p.m. here. So you're 6 hours ahead of me, Gene. I don't know where you would be exactly. I thought it was more like, maybe it is 6 hours for London. That could be, okay. But Anyway, so a couple questions that were sent in advance. I will grab those. Boy, new ones rolling in by the moment too. Hi, Lee. How you doing? Yeah, great questions about thyroid nodules. We'll cover those too. Okay, I'm going to show some images here real quick. And these were ones sent in beforehand. So share, and these are mostly from those in the metabolism reset diet group. We've got our big group going on for the year, and we'll do another group again in a few weeks. But this is a time where we think about New Year's resolutions, and weight loss is a big one. And it's a noble one, and it's possible. Even if it hasn't worked before, it can happen, and it yields huge health benefits. And spending years and years of looking at all the literature on what does and doesn't work, I built the metabolism reset diet. And I'm really proud of that. I hear a lot of people that were never able to shed weight otherwise to where it does work for them. But many of these questions came from that group. So Cher's asking what NDTs are still working. So yeah, there's a lot of context there. So NDT is natural desiccated thyroid. The brand placeholder, if you will, is Armor, kind of like, Kleenex to facial tissues. So there's other brands, and there's often talk that goes around about this brand is not working or that brand is not working. And they're different from one to the next. Some have been taken from the market, some are available, some are not. And there are many people who are on synthetic isolated T4 that don't get the full benefits of thyroid. They can add in T3 by itself, but there's also a hormone called T2, and that's a big one for energy and for body weight. And right now, the only way to get standardized T2 in the context of thyroid hormones is by natural desiccated thyroid. So existing products in the market, there's three pretty viable options. There are some over-the-counter options. I don't consider those viable. They're not standardized in any way, and you could get a lot or none or who knows what. So not great. But viable options, Armor brand is one. NP thyroid brand is another. And the last option is compounded thyroid. Now, there's two other products, both made by the same manufacturer, that have been off the market, might be making a comeback. We'll see. No new updates just yet. But I did have some encouraging news a month or so ago suggesting that both WP and or Nature Thyroid may be coming back on the market this year. So we'll see about that. But aside, Armor, NP, and compounded. Now, compounded, it can be done well, but it's not always done well. So basically, it's done by hand, and it uses raw materials that don't have to be standardized. Now, some pharmacies do standardize their products. They do testing before and afterward, and they do use raw materials that are more verified, but some don't. So I'm not financially tied to any of the pharmacies, but I've just talked about one that I'm aware of that does a job I'm really impressed with. That's Foothills Pharmacy in Mesa, Arizona. Now, if you're not in Arizona, they can ship to, last I heard, every state but maybe one. I think that was Missouri. I could be wrong, but they can ship pretty much anywhere. So you can have your doctor send a prescription to them, and they can make natural thyroid that's well standardized, that's clean, that's low in binders or fillers. So that's a good option. But between those three options, none are not working. So they all work. There's countless times to where someone is given thyroid medicine, but they don't really need it, or they're given an amount that's not appropriate. And that can be thought of as the medication having a problem. But in those cases, it's not. Now, NP had some batches that were above potency a couple of years ago. So that's happened. Armor has not had recalls or issues in the last several years. But yeah, they all work. Those are the three ones available in the market. But the bigger picture I would even encourage people to think about is whether hormones are needed. The big news has been that most people who are diagnosed and put on treatment are put on treatment unnecessarily. They don't need it. They're not likely to benefit from that. And the exciting news that goes with that is that your thyroid can heal to a greater degree and in more circumstances than we ever thought before. So that's why I'm so excited about the thyroid reset diet and the thyroid specific formulations. The body can get better, and so many people can improve their symptoms and need less medication. So yeah, I thought a lot more in the past, earlier in my practice, about getting the medication right being the big solution. And it can be for many people. But more often than not, I think more about lifestyle being the big thing, being the more powerful medicine available. Here's a quick one from my friend Joanne. Waiting an hour after taking thyroid med for eat anything. When did that change? I was told to wait half an hour. You know, Joanne, I think I did probably say that differently somewhere along the way, didn't I? Uh, Most people can do okay with half, but there are those where an hour is better. So if you've been stable on a half, I wouldn't worry about that. But for so many people, they struggle with getting their level stabilized and they may take more time. It turns out that some things like calcium or iron or dairy products, they may need even more than an hour. Coffee can as well. I give some quick feedback. Sam is asking, is it sort of keto style diet? So Sam, I'm assuming you're asking about the thyroid reset diet. Oh, and I see Matcha Lava here too. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too as well. No, so not a keto style diet. The thyroid function and diet connection really comes down to iodine status. So we have about I think 30 some odd thousand published studies on the connection between iodine and thyroid disease, and multiple studies showing that regulating iodine reverses thyroid disease for the vast majority of people. And that's something I wouldn't say lightly, but there's hard evidence showing that. So Hashimoto's thyroiditis, overt hypothyroidism, subclinical hypothyroidism, per the study, between 60 to 80% of people fully can reverse the disease within a couple of months. So what happens is those who are genetically prone to thyroid disease, them being prone to it, it means that they're more susceptible to the harmful effects of extra iodine. So it's not that they're always getting toxic from it per se, but they have a lower tolerance of iodine. So when they get above a certain threshold, that creates stress and strain on their thyroid. And that's something that's not all that new, but the new facet is that if they get below a lower threshold, that can set the stage for the disease to reverse. So the thyroid reset diet is a low iodine diet, but also there are other factors that are relevant to general health, of course, and thyroid health. So it's a healthy diet you can do long term and reset your thyroid, quite simply. But yeah, the studies have shown that 60 to 80% was full reversal of disease. So not taking into account improvement. But if we change that and say what percent of people either reverse disease or improve their thyroid function, the data there is 95 to 97%. And that's incredible. There's a lot of great popular approaches for folks with thyroid disease. Many will go on autoimmune paleo diets or gluten-free diets or vegan diets. And there's data out there suggesting that they may help some symptoms, they may help some people, but the iodine regulation has been shown to actually reverse the disease. We have no data like that for anything else. So it's super effective. And the other cool thing is it's actually pretty easy. There's no big long list of food categories to avoid. Every type of food you could think of, there are safe options that don't have too much iodine. So yeah. So a lot of folks coming on. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you guys. Again, you're at Office Hours Live. Next one is going to be in a whole new format and a whole new time slot. So stay tuned to whatever platform you're on for some updates on that. And I want to get a couple more questions from those in the Metabolism Reset Diet, and then I'll get a few more of these live ones. Sam, you're welcome. Sam, one more quick thing. The only data we have about keto diets and thyroid function is not good. The only published studies are on children who go on ketogenic diets for purposes of helping their epilepsy. And it does help that. It's a little bit more high in side effects than most medications are. So it's only for kids that don't respond to medications. But kids don't get a lot of thyroid disease. In fact, most pre-adolescents, the rate of thyroid disease is about one case per every 1,200 children. So rarer than 1 in 1,000. But when kids are on ketogenic diets, 27% require thyroid treatment. So not kidding, less than 1 in 1,000 up to 27%, which for comparison would be 300 per 1,000 roughly. So yeah, massive, massive increase. Now, There's reasons why that happens in terms of the dynamics of insulin and thyroid hormones that make perfect sense. So no, I don't advocate a ketogenic diet for thyroid function. That's all we know about it so far. Now, a couple more that were sent in before. We had Joanne's one last. Felicia was asking, do you suggest thyroid patients have their labs checked more than once during the MRD or the TRD, metabolism reset diet or thyroid reset diet? I'm on day 7 of MRD, had my labs drawn yesterday. Should I have them checked again before the 4 to 6 week mark? Would you probably feel heart palpitations before labs came back with a suppressed TSH? Felicia, that's a great question. There's a couple of questions in there. Oh, and you're here live. That's totally cool. Good to see you. Just jumped on just at the right time on Instagram, Felicia. Yeah, so if you're about to have them checked anyway, go for that. Now, if you're totally stable and you've not fluctuated from where you were before going on the MRD, you probably do fine to wait until the end again. On the other hand, if you've changed already, okay, so you just said your score. I don't know if that was a change from your last score or if that was like a new level. But yeah, if you're staying steady at that 0.7 for your TSH, you probably do okay to watch it again at the end. Now, on the other hand, if that was a big change for you, maybe you were 2 or 3 or higher before, and now you're down to 0.7. In that case, it might be worth checking earlier. And the second part of your question, would you probably feel heart palpitations before your labs came back with a suppressed TSH? You know, you could, but many people don't. Many people can be hyperthyroid and not have symptoms like heart palpitations. It's a huge, huge issue. So I would check if you were changing a lot, even in the absence of symptoms. So yeah, an important thing. If your TSH is too low, it does create a risk for you long term, but in the short term, it starves your thyroid. Your thyroid doesn't get the signal that it needs to heal itself and repair itself. You just starve it and you prevent it from growing and working properly. So that's a drawback of it being too low. It takes away from the chance of it helping and working better again. And I just saw your follow-up note. You were 1 in October. You know, honestly, if you were, I can't give direct medical advice, but just to be aware, if you were 1 in October and 0.7 now, that's pretty darn close. You know, even when you're testing perfectly, the fudge factor range of a TSH is just about a full point. So to be 0.3 different, you know, it's going to be between you and your doctor. But if I were advising someone, I would encourage them to just put that till the end and just check again at the end. That would be reasonable. Now, if you did have unusual symptoms, you could certainly revisit that. But overall, it's a good sign. It looks like you're moving in the right direction. So super good news. Okay, a couple more. And I've got a few more live ones coming in I'll get as well. So just looking back, Joanne, been stable and do well at half hour. Yeah, keep up with that. For those that really have a hard time getting dialed in, they can wait longer, but that's reasonable. Aisha is asking, she's on month 3 of the hyperthyroid bundle. It's going great. That's awesome news. Curious, with your formulation bundles, can there be a point that you're taking too much? Like with regular medication, when your thyroid is better or worse, medication can be adjusted. Can this happen with your formulation? I want to make sure I should be looking out for anything while I'm taking it. Okay, so the hyperthyroid bundle, yeah, that's used for those who are or were hyperthyroid. And that's a good question. One could think that maybe these things slow your thyroid down because many treatments for hyperthyroidism, they do slow the thyroid. That's their intention. These compounds don't slow the thyroid. What they do is they help your body recover from the damage of a slow thyroid, of an overactive thyroid. They prevent harm from there being hyperthyroidism. And they also help other treatments for hyperthyroidism work better, like a low iodine diet or other things to slow it, such as medications. But they themselves won't shut it down, so you wouldn't take too much of them. So just no big drawbacks to that. But if it were something that slowed your thyroid, then certainly you could reach a point where you didn't need it. Now, if you are on medication to slow your thyroid and you're on the hyperthyroid bundle, it's really common the medication will work better. And that means you may not need as much and you may not need it as long. That's not so much a harm of the treatment, but more so just that it makes other things work better, so they might need adjustments. I just saw a follow-up comment come in. This is one of our friends here on Instagram. hyperthyroid for a few years now and experiencing increased swelling and sharp pain radiating to jaw and inside ear. I'm worried. Yeah, hyper, and I'm sounding silly by exaggerating the pronunciation, but I'll make clear I'm not saying hypo. So hyperthyroidism, it is a big deal, and it's a stressor on your body, and it can cause cardiovascular harm and damage. So yeah, it shouldn't be persistent for any length of time. It should be well managed right away, and that's a concern. So yeah, please do follow up for some care with that. Now, if you're someone who lives in Arizona or California or Washington, Oregon, Utah, or Montana, you can work directly with the integrative health doctors, and they are doing telemedicine as well in those states. But you want some medical care, you want some help for that. Now, someone can be hyperthyroid and managed and at a stable level for some time, and that's okay. That can be years of being on treatment that manages it. But you shouldn't be undertreated. You shouldn't be having a low TSH and or high levels of T3 or T4. That's not safe. So yeah, if you want to talk more specifics, I'm happy to address that. But I want you to seek out care and do better as well. Okay, last one that was sent in advance. We'll grab a couple more live ones too after this. Paul is asking if there's a link between Hashimoto's and breast cysts. Have Hashis still subclinical, no meds, but doing the thyroid reset diet? Doctor recently found a large fibroadenoma among other benign cysts. Yeah, Paula, there can be a link, and this is kind of an odd one. What they've shown is that the tendency towards breast cysts or fibroadenomatous breast diseases can relate to an overactive sodium iodide symporter. That's the same thing that pulls iodine into your thyroid. And this is funny. This is so counterintuitive. Now, if you take a massive dose of iodine, you often cause breast cysts to shrink in the short term. So you would think that the solution is more iodine, but it only works in the short term. And it works because it stops the breast from absorbing iodine. The same way that iodine shuts down your thyroid, it shuts down the activity of the breast cells. So that it helps temporarily by just reducing the swelling. But longer term, staying with the thyroid reset diet can make a big difference for also improving your breast cysts. Now, one more great trick is including cruciferous vegetables. My very favorite one, I mean, there's so many good ones, but broccoli sprouts are awesome. They're crazy high in sulforaphane. And another thing to think about is buckwheat. That's a compound that has specific effects upon the pathways that clear estrogen metabolites. And you did mention in your question the connection there with estrogen and estrogen dominance. So buckwheat, broccoli sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, and then time on the thyroid reset diet. And I'd love to hear back from you, Paula, about how you do with your thyroid levels. The papers have shown that the majority of those who have subclinical hypothyroidism can reverse that with this dietary change you're doing. So I'm very encouraged for you and love to hear how it goes. Okay, so those are those couple that were sent in advance that I wanted to get. I will grab a couple of live ones. Oh, Paula's here live. Cool, Paula. Hey, and anyone here, what I'd love to get to first is if there are follow-up points to questions we've already covered. And I like those because we can go deeper. I always struggle with giving a right answer or a short, helpful answer. My dear wife can attest to this. She'll ask me questions and, like, how far is it to go to somewhere? And I'll give her the most precise answer I can give. I can't help it. That seems like that's a good thing to do. So I struggle with not saying too much. So if someone asks for more details, I'm always happy because there's more I want to say. So yeah, follow-up questions are great. So looking at some follow-up questions here. Aisha, no, I'm not on medication anymore. I'm in remission. Your article on over-medicating made me think about this. Yeah, perfect. No worries. You wouldn't get too much of that. Think about a time frame based on how long you're medicated, over-medicated, about that same time frame for using the hyperthyroid support. If you were over-medicated for 2 years, think about the hyperthyroid support for about a 2-year time frame. But there wouldn't be harm from being on it for too long. Related questions. I think, Yeah, I think actually the same one came from a couple different platforms on Instagram and on YouTube. Hyperthyroid a few years, sharp pain and neck radiating to ear, what could be the cause? Yeah, a lot of things can cause that. So nerve pain itself can be caused by hyperthyroidism. Now, pain in the jaw and the ear can be from overactivity of the trigeminal nerve. There's a thing called Bell's palsy, and the nerve itself can become impinged or inflamed randomly and generate massive pain signals. That's more common for people who have hyperthyroidism. That's one of the less worrisome possibilities. Now, cardiac damage can often cause pain that refers to the neck and the jaw. That's also possible. But yeah, hyperthyroidism should never be untreated. It needs to be managed and made sense out of. Frankie, on my phone, since computer isn't allowing you to play. That's funny. I'm not sure why the computer didn't let me on, but Leah's with us. Jean's here from Canada. Oh yeah, Jean had a great one. Just wondering what someone can do who is diagnosed with thyroid nodules. Yeah, awesome question. You can do a lot. And I'm going to give you a link here, and then I'm going to give you a quick summary of that article. I wrote a pretty detailed blog post about thyroid nodules. And pretty encouraging, but there's a lot you can do naturally to help them come down, and good evidence around that. So you mentioned being in Canada. You may or may not have access to a formulation that I made, which is talked about in that article, but there are a lot of lifestyle steps that you can do. So big ones can include regulation of iodine, which is talked about in the thyroid reset diet, good control of TSH, keeping it from not going too high, and then also nutraceuticals. So if you can't get our exact blends, look at the ingredients in our blends, try to replicate those with Canadian products. But I just dropped a link that'll show up for those on YouTube and Facebook. And now that same link will show up on Instagram. So there's a big detailed blog post about how to control nodules naturally. But yeah, you can make a big difference. And of course, not anything is 100% effective, but a very high percent of people can see a very dramatic reduction of nodules, which is really cool. Oh, Jen with us on Instagram has a really great question. Can you take thyroid support and the daily reset shake on the same day? Will it be too many micronutrients, for example, selenium? Yeah, that's a great question that I put a lot of thought into, and the short answer is no. I thought through every way in which someone could use any combination of my products, even using the shake a few times a day, and I made things all from scratch to prevent that very problem. And I take that very seriously, and I see commonly, it frustrates me, people will often be on multiple supplements, even from the same company, and they're getting way too much of certain nutrients. Like it hasn't been thought through well enough. But too much of a nutrient at best becomes weaker. At best it works like it creates the symptoms of a deficiency paradoxically. But there's also a point where too much becomes overtly harmful. So you always have to think about that and how things work in combination. But no, I put a lot of thought into all the blends, and they're made to be compatible. So good question, and you're doing fine. I thought about that for you. Let's see. Several more good questions. Let me get a couple here. I'm just kind of picking and choosing. Jen, suspected you thought of it, but wanted to make sure. It's a good question, Jen, and you should think of that. And if there are things you're on from other manufacturers, please take that into account. The stats are that 20% of the time when someone goes to the emergency room because their liver is damaged, it's because they've taken too many supplements. And it's not that they've taken supplements that were inherently liver damaging. It's just they were on too many different ones from different makers, and they're combining in unsafe ways. So yeah, I've taken that really seriously to prevent that for people. All right, a couple more questions. There's really good ones. Joanne, this is a puzzling one. Tried the thyroid bundle, but had adverse reactions and do find the daily reset packs. That's curious. So Joanne, there's nothing in the bundle that's not in the packs. And actually it's all the same things, but more targeted amounts of any of those. I never want to question someone's personal experience, but I wonder if the symptoms could have been from anything else around that time. I mean, you're smart. Maybe you tried a few times, but if it seemed reasonable, you might retest, because there's nothing additional in the pack that you wouldn't have found in the bundle that you wouldn't have already found in the pack in higher amounts. So yeah, I just wouldn't have predicted that one. And I saw one further back. Yeah, Frankie, how long does someone need to avoid iodine to reverse disease? That's a great question, Frankie. So in the Thyroid Reset Diet, I talk about two stages to it: the reset stage and the maintenance stage. The reset stage is what you're describing, what you do to reverse the problem. And based upon how far along the disease is, how long you've been on medication, how much iodine you might have been exposed to, that might be 2 weeks, it might be a year. It probably wouldn't be more than a year. Now, I shouldn't say that. There are cases where it could be a bit longer. There's two stages to the process. The first stage is getting rid of all the extra iodine. And the next stage is, now the thyroid can start healing, how long does that healing take? And in some cases of people who have taken very high amounts of iodine, it might take them 6 or 9 months just to clear the iodine. So during that whole time, there's no healing going on just yet. But once that's happened, then the healing can start. So those cases, however, they're generally ones where someone knows they were taking an iodine supplement. Iodoral is a common brand. There's a few others, or they were on iodine-based medications. So yeah, in cases like that, it might be a year and a half or so. But in most cases, you're seeing some big changes within 3 or 6 months. So that's more typical. All right. Wow. Lots of good questions for you guys. This is cool. So on one hand, I'm really happy to see a lot of people here, and that's awesome. On the other hand, it breaks my heart because I can't get to every single question. So if you just came on, you might not have heard, but brand new format for office hours and brand new time slot. So I'm sorry if you guys are used to this time slot, but I did a survey and many of you asked for a different time in the day, like a later time in the day. And many of you also asked to have an option to join on Zoom, many who are not on social media as much. So those who do follow on my newsletter, which you can get on drchristiansen.com, you can just sign up for that. You'll get notifications about our next live event. And I'll broadcast it on social media until we get to the Q&A. And the Q&A will just be for those who are with me live in that Zoom audience. So it'll be on Zoom as well. And that's where the discussion will be taking place on the Zoom part. One or two more. Let's see. Best supplements to support hyperthyroidism, please, doctor. Yeah, so I think it was, where was it, a few questions back? Aisha just mentioned that to us. She was hyper, and she's taking the hyperthyroid support bundle. And I'll give you a link for that. It was made just for that purpose. So, I mean, I went from scratch and went at all the medical literature and said, hey, what stuff has the best evidence? What's well documented from human studies? What's safe? What's going to be compatible? And that's where I made the hyperthyroid support bundle. I just put that up there for you. So that's for hyperthyroidism. And Leah's asking, how do you know if you're on too many supplements? Well, I don't know. If you're wondering, then maybe you are. I don't know. Somewhere, if you're in the double digits, you're almost always on too many. How's that? So no cut exact number, but I think about there being like foundational micronutrients that are good for anybody. And in my stuff, that's the Daily Reset Pack, the Daily Reset Bundle. That's the stuff that's good to take long term. Now, past that, anything else you take should be for a reason and a season. It should be for a particular time frame and for a particular purpose. But yeah, if you're looking at, there's a lot of things that people take that are things that I would argue are better found in food. Like, for example, my parents are in their 90s and their doctors prescribed them an eye supplement. And I thought, well, that's cool. I'm glad they're thinking that way. But the eye supplement contained 25 milligrams of bilberry extract. So knowing about this stuff, I looked at that, and mom was asking me, she goes, well, do I have to buy this? Can I take one of yours instead? And I said, well, mom, you could take 1/10 of a blueberry and you could get more bilberry extract than you get from that supplement. Don't bother with that. Yeah. So a lot of things that are nutraceuticals, or I should say phytonutrients, you can get more in foods, so don't take pills for so many things like that. But yeah, those are a few thoughts about how to cut back on those. Anne is asking, can't order that here though, doctor. Do you ship internationally? There's a couple of services that people use. Reship is one of those. There's another one that someone mentioned that was really good too. Maybe someone else can post that. I forgot the name. But these are services that allow you to buy things in the US that normally can't be shipped outside the US just because the companies aren't set up for shipping internationally. But these services give you a US address that you have your items shipped to, and they reship it to you. So yeah, there are ways to go around that. And that doesn't matter where you are in the world. So there are options for wherever you are.
myus.com.
Oh yeah, another one I just heard, thank you, that's good, is myus.com. And actually that's the one that I was seeing recently that had pretty reasonable shipping rates too. So basically you just sign up with this service and they provide an address, and then you then go to thyroid specific formulations and buy what you want to buy, and you put that in for your shipping address. You put the address that MyUS gives you, and we ship it to them, they ship it to you, wherever you are in the world. So yeah, there are options that way. And Tasmania, UK, Australia, Canada, wherever, those are all fine. Can swelling in hyperthyroidism go down after proper treatment, or can it be too far gone? Swelling in hyperthyroidism. Well, if you have more details, like what kind of hyperthyroidism, what kind of swelling, I can't quite parse that question easily. Swelling in general can be a symptom from hyperthyroidism, but generally more of a late stage symptom. And as a generalization, the swelling in thyroid disease often does correlate with the level of dysfunction. And as such, it generally does improve as the thyroid function does. There are some cases where it can cause stretching or damage to tissues that can persist. But yeah, if there's more details, I'm happy to make more sense out of that. Okay, I think I covered the bulk of those. Oh, here's an easy one for Sodamax. Which book do you recommend for weight loss, please? Yeah, so the book on that, I'll give you the direct link. My book that I wrote was the Metabolism Reset Diet. And yeah, I'm really, really proud of this one because it's such an important topic. And it's a topic that there's a lot of approaches that might work sometimes for some people, but don't always work that often for anyone. Oh, wow, I didn't know this, you guys, but there's a special on the Kindle version right now for the Metabolism Reset Diet. And the paper, okay, so there's a special going on right now that the publisher coordinated. Okay, I wasn't even aware of that. But there it is on Amazon. That's the direct link to it there. And the approach of it is one in which it's brief. So you do 28 days, you do it really well, and then you stop. And, oh, it didn't go on for some reason. Let me try that again. Also, it's based on getting modified protein sparing fasting is the basic idea in the literature. So you're getting protein, but you're limiting fat and carbohydrate for a window of time. Now, I do include a fair amount of high quality resistant starch. So even though you're limiting food, your blood sugar stays steady and stable. And I do encourage light amounts of exercise, not none, but not a lot. That's a high level overview, but this is made for folks that can't lose weight otherwise. And it's meant to be done short term, but the benefits tend to be lasting. And a lot of folks say that they are down a lot and they want to go further, and you can repeat it. Just take some time off and go back to it. But I give all the details and lots of recipes and lots of ways to do it, but that's the one for weight loss purposes. All right, so unless I see something that totally grabs my attention in the next minute or so, that's going to be a wrap for this one of Office Hours Live. We had a really good group here today. It was really cool. But the next one I'm going to do is going to be Zoom formatted. So what I mean by that is I'll do some general discussion with some early questions and topic ideas that'll go out on all the social media platforms just like this. But when it comes time for the live Q&A, that'll be just for like the studio audience. And you'll have access to that. So make sure you've got links where you can register and join us, and it's totally free. And you can be in the studio audience live. And that way I can pull you on video. If you raise your hand, if you got a question, I can welcome you on. and you can join audio or video, preferably video. It's fun to see people, and we can have a quick conversation. And there's so much that happens with real-time dialogue that can happen as well otherwise. It's also a private platform. The Q&A won't be a public thing. It'll just be for those in the event itself. And it'll be a time slot that'll be a little bit later for those who have a regular workday. So we're planning on January 25th, and it's going to be at 7 Eastern / 4 Pacific. And the details will follow wherever you're seeing me now. All right. So thank you for the kind words, Joanne, and thank you all for being here today. And I look forward to seeing you guys really soon. In the meantime, take great care of yourselves. Bye-bye.